Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved immortal beings, and good-looking people. Remember, you're good-looking, so always looking for and finding the good. You found good in abundance because you tuned in consciously and conscientiously to Eye on Las Vegas with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy. And you tuned in because on this show, we talk about some of the most interesting and fabulous events and things and people that happen right here in this pulsating city of freedom. Now, everybody in the world, everybody has heard of Las Vegas. Just going to give you an idea of something. If you take the entire population of New York City, the entire population of Chicago, the entire population of Los Angeles, it comes up to about 40 million people. That's not even the number of people that visit Las Vegas every year. Almost 41 million people from all over the world come to Las Vegas because it's a place of freedom and energy. You're about to meet one of the most energetic, one of the most freedom-loving, one of the most interesting people I've ever had the pleasure of working with, calling friend, and his name is Tony DUrso. Tony, please say hello to 411,826 people around the world.
Barry, what an intro. What an honor to be on your show. You're a good, dear friend. Thank you so much for having me on Eye of Las Vegas. This is great.
Well, you are the embodiment of this. Let me tell you, everybody, a little bit, just a tiny bit about Tony, because if I told you everything, take out the rest of the show. I'm going to give you 3 data points. Number 1, he's married to a wonderful woman named Sadie. Okay, that's very important. Number 2 is that Tony has gone through many different things in his lifetimes, and he's found his métier, his real purpose, and that is as an author. However, interestingly enough, he's able to do something, this is number 3, that most people think about and some people try and do, but he's become a master of it. And that is, he's a master of the art of podcasting. Tony DUrso has a show on radio, Voice of America. It's the number 1 show, 5 years running. And Tony, starting from ground zero, has built it up to more than 45 million downloads in the past 6-7 years. I mean, that's an astounding number. But you're going to hear why, because once he starts talking, you're going to understand why. So let's just dive in and touch upon the podcasting piece before we talk about the writing piece. So Tony, tell us, what is it that attracted you to podcasting, and how have you become such an enormous success that eludes most people?
Barry, thank you again for having me on the show. That is a big answer. We could do a series for the whole year on this. The reason I got into podcasting was because of failure, complete, utter, and constant and consistent failure. For example, I helped start a company. I was the vice president of sales and marketing. I ran that for like 7 years. I did very, very well at it. And then I went on into my own. I had the opportunity to then have my own lead generation company, which I also ran for 7 years. Go figure, 7. And that company had major protocol changes, federal rules and regulations. 4 of them in 7 years. That were like, the madness we had a couple years ago that shut down all the business. Everybody knows that. I'm not allowed to say that word, but I call it madness because just everything changed. Well, we had 4 of those in marketing and lead generation prior to that just kept changing my company. I mean, I had a customer, $1 million a year in sales. You think that's good? One day they cancel. Why? Another federal regulation came down and changed everything. I said, that's it. I'm going to look for something I can do, I can control, and I can go anywhere. And I go, what's this word? What's this word? Podcast? What's that? When I found out about it, I was like, hey, I can do that. I'm Italian. I can talk.
Wait a minute. I need to unpack something because, again, one of the reasons I love Tony, and everything you want to know about Tony DUrso is in the show notes. So just go and check out the show notes here below. I just want you to lean in and experience this person. He is not talking anything except honesty and truth. The F word, failure. You hear what he said? The F word, failure. Notice what happened, though, every time he seemingly failed. he picked himself up and he started again. And it, like you said, very biblical, every 7 years. And the genius of it is that he never lost his faith, the other F word. And when you balance faith in yourself against failure out there, and you take the world into your own hands, and you're the one who's now the captain of your ship. And he said, I've heard about this thing, podcasting. What the heck is that? You got to think back 7 years ago when there were maybe 17 podcasters in the world. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but today it seems like everybody's a podcast. But to do it well and to have tens of millions of downloads, you're like a Joe Rogan, except okay, fine. There's one in every million or so. So tell us what it is about you and podcasting that made the difference.
The simple analogy, which is kind of silly, is a vacation. That's how I did it. Just like a vacation. You want to go to Mount Rushmore. You go, okay, kids, we're going to take a vacation. Everybody hop in the car. Let's go to Mount Rushmore. Okay, where is it? Oh, I don't know. Let's go down this street. Let's go down this street. Let's go down this street. Let's try this. Obviously, everyone's like, Tony, you need a map. You need a map. You need to know where you're going. Mount Rushmore is that away or whatever. And that's exactly what I did. When I first learned about podcasting, I was like, I could do this, but I need a plan. And so I wrote 8 steps of the vision map, which is really, really simple and very real. I literally spent several weeks working out my plan. What's my vision? What do I see myself doing? What's my purpose? Why am I doing it? What's my objective that I'm going to take away? Now you're going to go, wait. Tony, we know those words. I go, oh, really? You know those words? Well, milk, sour cream, vanilla, sugar, salt, cacao. And I dare you, I challenge you, go in your kitchen right now with those words and bake me the best chocolate souffle I've ever had in my life. You can't do it, but you know the words. So it's a whole different thing when you really get into what this is and how to use it. So I created the vision map. There's 8 steps to it. I've spoken about this with you some years ago. We know each other for a few years. And I used that to create my podcast. When is it? Where is it? How is it? Who is it? Why is it? What is it? I worked all these things out. And then I did the silly Italian thing. I went live for an hour a week, which I don't recommend if you're going to podcast. Don't try that at home, folks. But I made so many mistakes. And
wait a minute, let's unpack something for people, sure, because it's so important what you just said. Tony created the vision map. He didn't just say, hey, I got an idea and just go and do it. Which, by the way, nothing wrong with that except for one thing. You'll fall down, you'll stumble, you pick yourself up. It's better to have a guide. It's better to think about it. It's better to have the vision map. He created the vision map, and I've used it. It works. And I think that you actually have a free copy of something about the vision map. So if that's available still, people will see it in the show notes, and they'll be able to get that. I want you to understand, though, what he's talking about. He wrote down what it is he wants to accomplish. See, when you commit things to paper or on the screen or whatever you should do, even though I think paper and pen are still the most positive, purposeful, powerful, pleasant way to enact something, it becomes concrete when you do it that way. That's how he succeeded. And he not only has his map, but he understands that he can follow it and things change. And you can use your map to get to your goal. So let's talk about you going onto this group called Voice America, and you have a podcast. Okay, so you're one of many people. How did you become number one? That's one question. And the second part of that is, how the heck did you get to millions and millions and millions of downloads?
I want to let you know that when I started, there were tons of podcasters. I wasn't the first guy on the block. I wasn't at all. I wasn't even the second guy. There were hundreds of thousands, if not a million, podcasters. I, at the time, was going into an area, Barry, that I thought was already crowded. There were already people doing what I'm doing now. I was like, I had my, I was like a little concerned. And another reason I did the vision map to really make sure, because I'm going against people that are already established with huge followings. All right. So And things do change, and that's where the map comes in, and that's where knowing what's going on. So I went into Voice America. I did the silly thing in my second year. Then had 2 shows going on a week, which is really, really hard to do. But I did it, and I wound up being within a year-ish, I became the #1 show in Voice America, a title I held for about 6 years. I now have recently left Voice America. It was a great run, and I was champion there for good, and it helped propel me. Everything I do helps propel me into another level. And to answer that one question, what did I do to get to my the downloads? Which, by the way, I'm at 48.2 million downloads, and I'm probably more than likely going to hit 50 big ones by the end of this year. Thank you, sir. We could spend we could do a series for the whole year or so on what I did. But one of the key simplest things is I chose to interview successful people because I'm not successful, but I'll bring successful people on to then teach others. And the very reason I chose that model is, Barry, is you yourself personally. You can't read everybody's books. You can't listen to everybody's podcast, take everybody's seminar, take everybody's courses, listen to everybody's speeches. You can't do that in a lifetime. There's just too much content, too many people, too much data. So I thought I'm going to take successful people at the top of their category, and I use this term called elite entrepreneur, and I'm going to take these successful people and then give it to those startups and business people and entrepreneurs that want to learn. And I want to let you know that not only am I providing that to my audience, but I'm using that information as well. And that information, I'm being mentored an hour a week by a person at the top of their category. I've used that information to take my show to new levels and to make very wise decisions, because you're talking to millionaires and billionaires that I'm interviewing on my show that give us a lot of great advice. So that's one thing right there to bring a growing audience. I am like around 300,000 downloads per episode now. It's blessed. I'm blessed. This is great. But one simple thing, when you bring on a guest, you ask them you ask them to put it in their social medias, put it on their website, send it out to their email list. And I don't follow up on anyone. There's no requirement, but I ask. And there's people that will send it out to huge lists, and it just all that helps grow. It's like, it's not just one thing, it's many things that you do. That's why I said we could spend a long time talking about this.
So let's unpack that so we can do a little recap. And that is that what Tony just said to us is, when you give opportunity to people, good things happen. So what's the opportunity? You find the people at the top of their game in their category. You give them the opportunity to share with people. And people who are at the top of their game are givers. They want to share. They love to share. So what happens is you became the channel, talk about channel, it's like radio, or the television. You became the channel, the conduit for bringing goodness in the world. So everybody wins. See, that's the genius of what Tony DUrso is all about. Everybody wins. The person he's interviewing, Tony himself, as he says, he's listening, he's becoming mentored, and the people that are watching. And speaking about that, we have people that we vet, sponsors. We have one sponsor right now that I think you're going to love. We wouldn't have them on if we didn't think they're worthy of your time. It's a 43-second introduction to a fabulous sponsor. We'll be right back after this brief message with more of this amazing Tony DUrso. Don't go away. You'll be happy.
What if you could shop at your favorite local stores, swipe your current credit card, and get extra cashback rewards? And what if you could also have donations sent to your favorite cause at no extra cost to you? What if this amazing program was absolutely free and very simple to set up? Well, What If is here. Welcome to Einstein Cares, where your everyday shopping gives you and your favorite cause extra money. It's fast, it's easy, and effortless.
Good day, beautiful, bountiful, beloved, immortal beings, and good-looking people. Maybe you're good-looking, so always looking for and finding the good. Our cup runneth over with good. His name is Tony DUrso, and he's been regaling with us the process that he used with his vision map to go from a failure, as he says a couple of times, into a person he's in the top of his game. He's in the top 1% of all podcasters in the world, with almost 50 million downloads and a growing audience of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who download every week. I want to talk about now something that really tickles me, Tony, because you're one of the more creative people I've ever had the pleasure of working with and being a friend. And by the way, I was on Tony's show, so I'm deeply honored. And Tony's been on my show. You're now an author. Now, you were an author before. You've authored nonfiction books. And let's be blunt, nonfiction is an art. However, when you're doing nonfiction, you do research, you give information, and it's really about information, a little bit of inspiration, and hopefully transformation. Writing a novel is a very different process, because you're going into uncharted territory. You're creating a story that you really want to attract people, that they don't want to put it down. You want to be the new Lord of the Rings and such like that. How does Tony DUrso go from being this remarkably successful podcaster, publisher of nonfiction, with a wonderful wife who now allows him to write novels? First of all, what is the novel? What's the name of it? What's it about?
Sure. When this kind of goes back to the vision map, because I hadn't written any books until my first year in podcasting. Book was on my vision map, so I wrote a book, and I've written multiple nonfiction books: Easy Sales Procedures, Elite Entrepreneurs, The Disciplined CEO, and a few others. They've all made it on the bestseller list. And what happened is some years back, my co-author SKR came to me with this really great, amazing storyline. And I thought, this is wonderful. I love it. And I was asked to help put it together. And I thought, well, I'm known for nonfiction. I'm growing my podcast with elite entrepreneurs. This is totally out of, what is it? It's in a whole different area. It's not going to work. But because there's a co-author on the book, this can work. So we developed a story, we put it together, and we came up with the book, Volume 1, Iman of Atlantis. Volume 1 is Bitten. I happen to have it here, Bitten. It's a really nice old world classic, from, a couple thousand years ago type of a style. And so, and the reason it's Bitten, Bitten, is because bitten for greed, for gold, and lust for power really kind of changed the landscape with some nations in our book. This is all fiction. And how this kind of happened is as I got this character development with SKR, and we started fleshing out the story, who's who, how old is the person, what do they look like, all their characters. We started creating these characters, and it was like, this is great. Where do they live? Well, we can't put them on Earth, so where do we go? So there's, if you go to the old maps from a couple hundred years ago or so, like for example the Mercator map, there's seemingly hundreds of maps with the center of Earth, the middle of Earth, with 4 island continents, and they're not on maps anymore. And I thought, this is great real estate. It's not there anymore for whatever reason. We can use that. So I claimed that. I go, okay, you are now here by Atlantis, and we created, and we actually drew a map of the northeast quadrant, and it's in the book. We actually drew that out, and we go, great. Now we have a place, we have characters, we know who they are, and the story started writing itself. And I'll just give you a quick synopsis.
Okay, before you go there, I want to unpack something for the audience. So let's talk to people. We have an audience that is worldwide. Hundreds of thousands of people listen from all over the world, and obviously very different cultures. Most of the people are under the age of 35. 85% of the people are under the age of 35. I'm sort of loath to say this, but I will. They don't know about Atlantis. They've heard of the Atlantic Ocean, but some in today's environment, I'm not sure people know about Atlantis. So just give us a brief understanding. What is Atlantis? Why did you even think about it? Does it conjure up some romantic past?
Atlantis, if I have the story right, and I'm willing to be fact checked because I'm just coming off the top of my head here, it's been a while, but there was a priest, if I'm not mistaken, that Plato ran into, and he told him the story of Atlantis. Based on the story I've read, this is all like verbal hearsay. There was this island, nation, continent. They were warriors. They were very warlike people, and they had great abilities or technology, and they fought each other, and then the whole place sank and got destroyed. That's kind of the lore of Atlantis. And the Atlantic Ocean is named after Atlantis. And per that priest who told Plato, he said, you can go to Atlantis if you go through the Pillars of Hercules. Today,
which is today the Straits of Gibraltar.
That's what people say, but there's no pillars there, but just people say that that's where it is, but there's nothing there. So
who knows, right?
Who knows? So if you look on modern maps today and you go to the Middle Earth, center of the Earth of the world, it's just all water, and it was like, okay, folklore says Atlantis sunk. I go, great. Since in our story this was thousands of years ago or so, it's perfect because Atlantis was there back then.
So the book is out, or it's just coming out, and it's called Imen, I-M-E-N. Now, what does Imen mean?
That's a beautiful question. We haven't defined that, but we needed a unique word for. And if I told you the little synopsis, you'd understand. But these are unique people. They're not like you and I. Let's say we're men. They're more spiritual. They're different. Though it would be helped better if I told a really fast synopsis.
Please.
Which is the Imen, the original Imen. Now, my story, this, what I'm telling you, is not part of the book. This is just sets the stage of the story. The story starts after. The Imen, consider them for concept. Get in your mind, samurai, fierce fighting samurai. And they fought all the nations on the 4 island continents of Atlantis. And they fought and fought until no other nations were around. And it was just themselves. And then they started infighting, and they started taking out each other. And anybody outside could see the writing on the wall, so to speak. They were going to kill each other off. So a divine messenger comes down and speaks to them and says, you've taken out, you've killed, you've destroyed everything else except your own people, and now you're fighting them. You're gonna go wipe out creation unless you stop. And if you stop, and in return for stopping and laying down your weapons, you'll get various abilities and powers, such as how to heal and other things I'm going to tell you about in a moment. And these Imen that did not heed that, because they're warlike and tough and all this, they continued in fighting until they went totally extinct. But those that laid down their weapons, Barry, they became now the mythical, magical, mystical people of Atlantis, the Imen. And they can do things. For example, they could turn things into gold if they want. They don't use money, but they could turn things into gold. They could slow down time. They could heal somebody. They had amazing abilities and properties, but they were very humble because they had this message, this divine message. And the only way to keep their powers and abilities were to follow the protocol. Well, when the neighboring nations found out that the Imen existed and what they could do, now they're bitten. Again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, bitten for greed for gold and lust for power. Now the story starts where the nations are now, they want to capture.
Oh, so you're telling me that these wonderful, amazing, humble, beautiful people, the Imen, with these powerful, positive, purposeful, pleasant tools, are they want to be captured by the sort of, in quotation marks, regular people who are lusting for power and greedy, much like the rest of the world is today.
Yeah, probably.
In other words, this is the human condition, and the I men hold the secret, and now the bitten people are out to hunt them and capture them and put them as to work for them.
And I'll give you a little clue on that. The second book is written. It's going to be out in a couple of months, and that title is Ruthless.
What's the name? What's the second part?
Ruthless.
Ruthless. Oh my gosh, from bitten to ruthless. Well, those are captivating titles. And as you mentioned to me before we went on, so I Men is available, of course, on Amazon, wherever fine books are sold and such like that. And it's already at the #1 spot nationally, internationally. So we urge everybody, get yourself a copy, read it, and enjoy it. And again, if I have to make a comparison to the Lord of the Rings, it's not a terrible comparison.
May I
do as well?
May I? The Tolucan Times, which is the entertainment paper of Hollywood, the Tolucan Times did a review, and they said, "quote It's a unique world in the tradition of Tolkien." They absolutely loved it. But a little spoiler alert, there are no dragons and no rings in the book.
Uh-oh. Without dragons, how do you attract people? Rings, I understand, but dragons are fabulous. And no dragons. Okay. And still the book is alluring, entertaining, fascinating, captivating.
It's been out about a month or so, and it's hit #1, literally, in multiple countries. It's a #1 international bestseller already. I'm just so blessed. This is great.
Well, we're glad that you did this. So again, the reason I asked Tony to be on the show today is because he's the embodiment of what happens with the Las Vegas spirit. It's called freedom. It's called energy. And as you heard from the beginning, and I urge everybody to listen to this again, the guy who's been through failure and picks himself up, and then failure, picks himself up and says, wait a minute, you know something? I'm the master of my fate. I'm the one with faith in myself. I can do things. And thank God there's something called the microphone and the internet, and you can do podcasting. And now 50 million downloads, hundreds of thousands of people listening to him. I'm honored to call him friend. Tony, I'm sorry we have to say we're coming to a close in our time. I have 3 quick questions for you. You ready?
Go for it.
#1, will you come back again?
Absolutely would love to, Barry. Will you have me on again?
Thank you. #2, you have only 80 seconds to answer this, Mr. Tony DUrso. What is your most fervent desire?
To help as many people as I can, because I have what's considered consider success as food. I have all the food I want to eat. Let me help other people that need food and need help, because I already am there. So I just enjoy helping, and it's a beautiful place to be. It takes work to be there, to stay there, but I really just enjoy helping, and I hope that comes through in my podcast and the interviews that I do.
It certainly comes through for me. I mean, Tony is the embodiment. He's what I call a cog. People think a cog is a small piece in a big machine. Cog stands for channel of goodness, a child of God. That's who he is. And #3 question, can I give you a hug in front of 411,926 people around the world?
But now it's 9:27.
7. Okay, let me tell you what hug stands for. Heartfelt, unlimited giving. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, you're listening to Eye on Las Vegas with your humble host, Barry Shore, the ambassador of joy, and our amazing guest, Tony DUrso, the #1 podcasting person you should ever listen to, with more than almost 50 million downloads. One of the great books that's coming out. It's out there. You need to pick it up. It's called I Men of Atlantis. First volume is Bitten. And get it, look at the show notes, and become a follower of Tony, because he's a great guy, and he'll help you a lot in life. And we're giving a blessing from Tony and Barry. Go forth, live exuberantly, spread the seeds of joy, happiness, peace, and love. Go mad. Go make a difference. Tony, don't go away.